Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the Night of the Living Dead.
Let's give them, they're here early, so you got to at least appreciate that as well. Let's just get started. And when John shows up, he shows up. I believe this is your first time here, Richard. Am I correct? You haven't been to one of these events before?
Second.
The second one, really? Nice. Well, welcome back. Anything you guys want to say about the 40th anniversary before we get to the questions?
Well, the 40th anniversary. You mean it's a 50th?
50th.
Lorraine, you hear that?
10 years just slipped by without me even knowing it. I'm sorry.
Hey, time flies. I was 14 one day. Now I'm 82. No, I'm 83.
Just aged a year while you were up there. Wow.
Just got a year older.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Your
50
turn.
years. Go right ahead.
We need some questions.
First off, I have a question. That's not the original hat, I take it?
No,
Where is the original hat?
I wish I knew.
Where was it seen last?
Hanging on a bedpost of my brother-in-law's sister.
We'll leave that there.
I gave it to her when she's about 10 years younger than me.
Uh-huh.
I gave it to her way back when. But anyway, she got married, and her husband thought it was an old boyfriend's hat, so she threw it away.
Oh, no. What year would that have been?
Pardon me?
How long ago was that?
15 years ago.
Wow. Let's get to some of your questions.
They're still married.
Wow. Who knows where the hat is? We got any questions from you guys? I know you do. This is a pretty big event here. Oh, come on.
They're
Don't
all
be shy.
scared.
I think they are.
They're scared. The Night of the Living Dead was a scary film,
I'll give you that.
and in black and white.
Which leads us to the lighting on the film.
The lighting was terrific. Yes. The terror and the suspense and the shadows. It's in the shadows. That's where it is. This film seriously was made black and white, and that is the way it should be because of the content of it and all the different things that went on.
Oh, was anything as far as the lighting go taken from like 40s film noir, or was it just kind of like more of a documentary kind of lighting, you think?
Oh, no, not documentary lighting at all. It had a lot of grace and a lot of intelligence in the lighting. I worked with George Romero, and he and I would discuss the beginning of the saying. He'd say, Joe, here's what we want. And this person's coming in here, and then this lady's going to come in here, and then we'd put it together, and that's how it was. But we had artistic and beautiful lighting.
Wow. All right, come on, let's get some of these questions going here.
Did you notice how beautiful the lighting was?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I have a question right down here.
Thank you.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite scene in the movie?
Favorite scene in the movie? Any of you?
Who?
All of you. All of you. Favorite scene? You all had to have a favorite scene.
Your turn.
Coming through the windows, when the zombies finally break through into the house, first time, I get shot at that point, but when that window crashes, that's when you know this is not going to end well. The defenses can be broken. So that moment always gets me when I see it anyway. I want to say this before I forget to say it or don't get the chance. When I was 50 years old, I had a chance to become an electrician. And I thought back, of course, immediately to how impressed I was with Joe. And I said, I can be an electrician? Great. That's just what I want. That's what Joe Unitas did. And that made that movie. So I started at 50 years old to be an electrician. Did that in Hollywood for 10, 12 years. or I couldn't do it anymore. I'd do it again tomorrow if somebody hires me to be on the lighting team of a feature film. It's the best job in the movie.
Well, it's very nice of you to say what you have just said. But within the movie, there were so many spectacular scenes. There is one particular scene that I can remember. George and I worked on it closely. There was a little music box involved, and the music box rotated. And I said, George, get an establishing shot of this, then go in for a close-up of her eye coming right through that musical box. And that was one of the scenes that I thought was nice. And nice of George to keep it in there. He was that kind of a person. He was a wonderful guy.
And your favorite scene of the movie? You with the hat. Your favorite scene?
I didn't know I was supposed to talk with these guys. I think the favorite scene in the movie was when the truck blew up. Because when they were making the movie, they had two different trucks. And the one that actually ran was my dad's truck. So I'm kind of leaning toward the truck scene.
And John, welcome. Just
Great
turn it on.
Jack Russo.
If you just click your mic on, that'd be great. Just click it on. It's got a little switch on there.
Hello.
That's much better. We were just talking. Welcome, John.
Thank you. And by the way, it's only 1 minute after 3 now, so I'm,
That's a little. It all worked out well. We're just talking about the favorite scenes. There's so many to pick from. Do you have a scene that sticks out in your mind as one of your favorites, as far as the way it was executed?
well, there's so many good scenes because it all kind of works. Or you all wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I used to feel back when the movie was first made and the first audiences were seeing it. I knew that by the time it got about 20 minutes in, that people would probably be totally hooked. And I used to just kind of wait for that. And about 20 minutes in is when Dwayne, the headlights of the truck get broken out and Dwayne beats those two ghouls down, and then I'm sneaking into the house. And I'm not saying this because I'm the one sneaking into the house. I just knew that this movie, a whole lot of the time people were hooked after the first 5 minutes, but if they weren't totally hooked 5 minutes in, by the time it got 20 minutes in, you could hear a pin drop, except for the screams and shudders. So that was my thing about it. And then after a while, and you keep seeing it with audience after audience, and it gets the same reception everywhere, and it goes on and on for 50 years, I always tell people the reason I look so good now, because I was only 3 years old when we made the movie. I was kind of a prodigy. And they all believe me because I have this sincerity about me, right?
Okay. You had something to say, Joe? Real quick, you were.
Yeah, well, Jack, it's nice of you to say all those things. And without you people, the movie would not have been what it is.
You mean they're all in their 70s?
Well, let's see.
I didn't know. Some of them look a lot younger. Dave Fairhead looks younger.
Yeah.
How old are you, Dave? 72?
Wow.
He's not even saying anything.
So how was the premiere? I know it was quite a while ago. The premiere of the movie, were you surprised by any of the audience reaction to it, or you just expected them to be hooked like you said?
That was back when whenever we started to show the movie at our studio, that's when we knew before we even showed it to anybody, we really had a movie, because George would be doing the main editing and he'd show it to us in pieces. And so you have that thrill and excitement of what you've done is finally coming together. Because it used to take a long time between shooting and when you first saw something, because you had to sync up all these takes, 56,000 feet of 35 millimeter film, and all the lip sync takes had to be synced before you could even start editing. Now, with digital computer editing, it's a lot easier and faster. And then we're bogged down with commercial work, so we really didn't see anything. We finished shooting in October in the cemetery. That was the last stop, and the stuff in the house of the bonfire and all that. And then then we start syncing takes and get tied up with commercial jobs, and we don't really see things coming together for a few months. But then when we did, I remember Carl Hardman said, "I think we have a movie." That was his reaction. Well, and then when we showed it in the studio to a bunch of people, they were all scared as hell. You know, you start to get those good reactions. But then the premiere comes up, and there's always this tension. Are people going to really like it? We have this packed theater, and we're going out on a limb with Klieg lights and red carpet and limousines and all that. And what if the movie falls on its ass? And it didn't. It got a standing ovation, and it was on its way. You know, it started doing business all over the country, and we started getting ripped off all over the country. And that never stopped to this day. So,
Anyone else remember anything about the premiere?
I got drunk as hell.
Okay.
I had the flu really bad. By the time Russ and I were busting our asses, we did all the promotion because, again, George was tied up, and we didn't want to take a chance. The distributor wasn't doing anything, so we didn't want our movie to bomb. So Russ and I did all of that and made the decision to do the red carpet thing with the Klieg lights. And so, you know, when you're overworked, a lot of times you get sick, and I just had the flu really, really bad. And so I got drunk because...
Well, I was not at the premiere because I had other things to do. I was out filming somewhere for Iron City Beer, and they'd pour 2 cases of beer in a glass until they got the right spill, the foam and so forth. And I probably was out there doing such things.
And the other two?
I remember the premiere. We weren't sure if the mayor and the dignified people that were coming to the premiere knew anything about what they were about to see. So the word kind of passed among us. Make sure you know where the exits are. These people maybe come after you once they see this movie.
You know, they did almost come after Vince. The next day after the premiere, we all split up and went to different theaters just to see what the audience reaction was. And that's when we got the first clue that the movie was a hit, because there were a lot of drive-in theaters on Route 51 on the way into Pittsburgh, and the cars were actually backed up from the drive-ins onto Route 51. They couldn't get into the drive-ins, and the theater chain had to take out ads apologizing for turning people away.
Wow.
And that's the first and maybe only time they ever did that. But Vince went to see it I think it was in the Leona Theater in Homestead, and it was an all-black audience. And they were standing on their seats yelling at the screen, you know, through all the argument, upstairs, downstairs, cellar, and all that. And when Ben got shot, they really went crazy. Vince had to sneak out the side door. He was afraid they were going to tackle him in the alley and beat him to death.
Jeez.
So I remember him telling us that.
How was the promotion done on the film? It was a different world back then with movies being promoted than it is today. How did the theaters promote this film, and how did it get to be so? How did they get to be so effective with all of this?
These questions are causing me to be the only one that has to talk for a long time, and I don't want to slight these other guys, but I'll answer that one, and then maybe you could.
Gotcha.
We made. Carl Hardman had taken about 1,000 stills. He took almost all the behind-the-scenes photos, and they had their own darkroom there, you know, at Hardman Studios. And so we had a huge supply of stills, and he and Marilyn kept printing them and printing them and printing them. But what it turned out to be good for promotion because we sent press kits out. And I wrote the stuff for the press kit, and all it was mimeograph stuff with a synopsis and biographies and whatever could make the movie sound good. And we sent these 50 press kits out, and every press kit had about 3 photos in it, 8x10s from the movie. And we went to the yellow pages, and we sent them to every TV station, every radio station that was in the yellow pages, and all the newspapers. And we got all the shareholders to put up posters wherever they worked, put up posters in your office and whatever, and get in touch with your local newspapers. So we got coverage all over the place, from the smallest newspapers to the largest, Pittsburgh Press and Post-Gazette and so on. And that's basically how we did it. Again, we just didn't want the movie to die, and the distributor really did almost nothing. But their preview trailer was good. I ended up writing the copy for the trailer, you know, that when the dead turn on the living and all that. And they used that copy, but they really did a great trailer, I think. I thought it was good then, and I think it's good now, but they didn't do much more than that. And by the way, the prints they pulled when we saw the print at the premiere, we were stunned because they went to a Japanese company and pulled the cheapest prints they could. And a lot of them were brown, and a lot of them were out of sync by a mile. And that wasn't our fault. And that's why we got criticized and blamed for, and we made this so-called grainy little movie. And now everybody can see that it wasn't a grainy little movie thanks to the restoration, you know, and the state-of-the-art as it exists now.
All right, let's get some of your questions. Just raise your hand or come around with the mic. I know you guys got questions. There you go. Here you go.
This is a Joe. Joe, you had mentioned with the black and white film that there were certain lighting techniques that you would do to emphasize. Would you have had to do that any differently if it was a color film?
No difference whether it would be color or black and white. If it was the same film, we'd be doing it the same way in color or black and white.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I know that with the different mediums, you might have to do something differently, but apparently
No.
you've answered the question.
Right. One of the reasons that Jack knows so much about what's going on, he worked directly with the company called The Leighton Image that was putting the film out and producing it. And he knows more inside about what is going on and what was going on.
The other reason is that I make a lot of stuff up.
Yeah.
You didn't make this up. There was, I don't know, I think I can reveal this. I think it's been stated before. It goes back to that music box scene that Joe began by talking about, the music box scene. That scene was invented by, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, Jack, my cousin Rudy. Rudy was very instrumental in getting us all together in the beginning. And he and George were very close friends. Rudy also felt he could direct the movie. We were sure that George would photograph the movie, but directing, Carl wanted to direct. Carl Hardman thought he was oldest and pretty savvy. Rudy was youngest and very brave. And he felt he could direct the movie. He was a great actor. Jack and I both, and Russ and a few other people said, no way, George has got to direct this movie. And so we had a director off, a contest to see who would direct the movie. Believe it or not, that movie was made with that much committee, democracy, whatever. Anyway, so Rudy invented that scene as his directorial exhibition. And George and everybody liked that scene so much, we kept it in the movie. That pretty much it, Jack?
Well, as far as George being the director, well, Russ and George and I went to a meeting at Hardman Associates, and George was ready to hand the directorship to Hardman, and they were looking at each other across the table like, you know, a poker game in a Wild West movie. And I took that moment and I said, well, if neither one of you wants to do it, I'll do it.
Right.
And the reason I did that was just to stop George from handing the directorship to Hardman. And when we left, we got out, we're going from Smithfield Street to walking over to Fort Pitt Boulevard. Says, George, I don't want to direct the movie. I'm not ready to direct the movie. But if you don't direct the movie, all of our friends and associates are going to lose faith in the movie and we'll never get it made. And you have to direct it. So that was my contribution to that decision.
Well, Jack, he would put the words on the paper, and then I would embellish them with my manner of lighting. And that's how it started. It was a great team, a togetherness. It was just a great team of togetherness.
That's for sure. Once we got rolling, everybody was solidly behind George as the director, and we all worked our asses off. Everybody put forth 200% effort or more,
yes.
and that's the way it went. And there
Yeah.
weren't any ego problems or backstabbing crap like often happens. And so that's probably one of the secrets of success of the movie.
Okay, let's get some more questions from you guys. Questions? They're up there,
How about a joint? Does anybody have a joint?
right there. There we go. So there's your
See
question.
me after the show.
There's a question over there.
Brian knows everything. If there's something we don't know, he knows it. He doesn't want to talk. He wrote and did he wrote a lot of the and did a lot of the artwork for the tribute issue to George. That a lot of you probably have that magazine. You have some with you? I do. Okay. If you haven't seen it, it's a great job. You know, great tribute to George, and he'll have them for sale here.
On my display out there, I have pictures of George and I recalling some of the scenes, getting directions, and there's a nice picture of George and me there talking. You people might want to look at it.
Got a question again over here.
This is for Richard RICCI. How were you selected to be the first zombie? How did that come about? Remember, they'd done the squib, and that was the first time, and the first time that we knew that a zombie had to be shot in the head to bring it down. You were the first. How were you selected, and how would you describe that?
George asked me. He said, Richard, we have a stunt for you. And we've never tried this stunt before. I said, oh, okay. What is it? And he said, well, we're going to work with something we call a squib. It's going to explode inside your shirt, and it's going to look like bullets hit you. I said, okay. Why me? He says, well, we've never done this before. I think we got this from the back of a horror comic book, a little ad for squibs you sent away for. And Regis never done it before, so we want you to do it because if you get hurt, you won't sue us. I said, that makes sense, George. Thanks a lot. But it went off okay, I have to say. Not entirely without problems, but we eventually worked it out.
What problems were there with that?
Well, I don't know. They put it, first of all, they put it on my shirt, which when you lean back like this, your shirt touches you, and they thought, but when you're walking forward, your shirt blouses out a little. So when the thing exploded, it came back and hit me. Maybe I was a little off balance. It's night, broken ground, and it knocked me over. I couldn't believe it. I was back from Vietnam maybe about a year, and here's my best friend shooting me in the heart, and all of a sudden I thought they made a mistake. There's something wrong. I'm falling down. That was a little problem, but we got over it eventually. They then started putting the squibs on the bodies, and that way they didn't smack you.
All right. You have a question over here? All right, here you go.
I would just like to know what was either the weirdest or the funniest thing that happened during the filming? Anybody?
Well, now I have to tell, to me the thing that I still remember is, the ones that stayed at the farmhouse were me and Gary Striner and George Romero and Vince. And so I get up about 4 or 5 in the morning and I go out onto the porch of the farmhouse, and Vince was out there, and he had one of those galvanized steel tubs full of water and ice, I guess, I don't know, and he had these stringy white things, and he had a Coke bottle. And he was holding these stringy white things up in the air and pouring water into them and then tying them in knots. And it looked like a scene from a Fellini movie or something. It looked very surrealistic, especially at dawn, What in the hell are you doing, Vince? These are sheep's intestines from the packing house. And George said they don't look real enough. If I gotta fill them with water and tie knots in them so they flop around when the zombies are grabbing at them.
Well, I have a scene that was kind of scary. My wife was on the set with me, and up in the upper chambers, they had some mannequins lying on the bed. And suddenly, this one mannequin gets up and walks and talks. You remember that, Jack?
I don't remember that.
Lorraine witnessed that, and we had our daughter Lori Jo with us, and wow, that was scary to you, Lorraine. Yeah.
Well, I thought there was going to be a trick to it, that it was a real person. You just saying the mannequin came to life.
What was his name? The main guy. He was lying with the mannequins.
Oh,
and he
Wayne.
sat up.
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
Yeah.
yes.
Who was with the mannequin?
Me.
Oh, you.
I was laying with him.
Oh. I didn't know you had that kind of hang-up.
And Dick, FFA, scary scene, a weird scene, the strangest thing that happened on set with you?
I was only there for 1 day.
Well, it was a heck of a day.
Yeah. I don't really remember a whole lot of anything because I was only 17 years old, and I was,
What made you wear the hat? What made you wear the hat?
I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is I used to watch Rat Patrol, and the star in there always wore a hat like that, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be in a movie, I'm going to look like him.
I was thinking more F Troop with a pinned up side. So you just wore it you think to stand out more?
I have no idea what I was thinking. 17 years old.
So how long were you on the set? Was it a full day?
Yeah, we were there pretty much the whole day. I remember we ate lunch, and that's about the only thing I do remember for sure. Other than
And that was like in the fall. That was around October.
I believe that was in July.
July.
Yeah.
Well, we started shooting in June, and we shot for about 19 days, I think. Then we took a break and did some work to bring in money, commercial jobs. And then we shot the stuff. The basement of the farmhouse had no basement, so the basement was the basement of our office building on Fort Pitt Boulevard. We shot that stuff. We went to the Washington, D.C. scene was drive there, shoot with no permissions in front of the Capitol, and drive back all in 1 day because we had no money for hotels or anything. And then the last stuff was coming back out here to shoot the rest of the cemetery scene and the wrap-up of the bodies onto the bonfire and all that. So there were 30 days altogether, 30 shooting days.
So were there any incident with the police due to the fact that you guys didn't have permits for a lot of this stuff ever?
Well, now you'd probably get shot or thrown in jail at the very least. You can't do that now, but we went there. We could see the Capitol. We didn't know how in the hell to get to it. Washington, D.C.'s kind of complicated if you don't know the streets. And we're driving around, can't get there from here. And just by luck, standing on the corner was a friend of mine from Clairton. And he told us how to get there. So we get there, and then when we set the cameras up, there was a whole group, I think they were all school teachers for a convention. They gathered around, and Al McDonald had to change into the general's uniform. And so we held blankets up around him to get out of his civilian clothes and into the uniform. And there are shots. I have a couple of those shots on my table if you want to see them. And so that was kind of funny. And the uniform was really lousy. I called all over the place trying to get a real general's uniform, and you had to have a permit to get a real one. And I finally got the one that we used from the Pittsburgh Playhouse. And good thing the movie's in black and white, because in color it wouldn't have looked real.
And another question right here.
So my sister and I are born and raised in Evans City, and I was 5 years old when the film came out, so I wasn't allowed to watch it. But I remember when I first saw it was on Bill Cardell's Chiller Theater. And Bill was quite a celebrity at the time, being an anchor on WPXI, and I wondered if any of you were directly acquainted with him.
No?
I was not.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh. Drew a blank. Yeah.
Blank.
All right, let's got time for just a few more questions. So thank you guys for coming out, sitting in the sun, and coming out and making all this happen. Let's get one or two more questions. You guys got them. You got one right over here. See? There you go.
What did you think of the 4K restoration of Night of the Living Dead that just came out last year?
Well, it's beautiful, but it's no beautiful than the first prints that we pulled, you know. I mean, the film was shot with 35 millimeter Arriflex, and in those days, most Hollywood films were shot with that same camera or Panavision. If you didn't shoot Panavision, you went Arriflex. And so our movie looked as good as any movie, and unfortunately, because of those prints the distributor pulled, it didn't look that way. But then later, I mean, you know, the Elite we did the state, as the state of the art improved over the years, there were different versions made that did look better, and we cleaned up a lot of things as we could. And now I guess this Museum of Modern Art Restoration is going to be the definitive one, but you never know because technology keeps changing and progressing, so who knows? But to me, it's good enough.
Has the film been ever dubbed in another language?
Oh yeah, it's been dubbed all over the place. And the M&E tracks were lost because you have to send M&E tracks to different countries so they can use them to dub in whatever language it's going to, and somebody lost them before.
What is an enemy track?
Music and effects you have to have a music and effects track without any voice on it, and it has to be complete so that the foreign voice can be dubbed onto, but using those same effects and music. So somewhere in the history of the film, the M&E tracks were lost.
And let's get one more question from you guys. Right over here. Make it a good one. Last question.
Whose Pontiac was destroyed in the cemetery? Do you know whose Pontiac that was that got driven in a tree and the window broken out of? And
Oh, we do indeed. We know who it was. was
Oh, well, that one, Russ, I assume Russ is
Russell's
gonna be,
mother.
that was Russ's mother's car.
Russell and Gary's mother.
So,
And it had a bent door. The door had been in an accident, so there was a cave-in on the driver's side. So George said he could use that effect, and that's how the car had to roll down the hill. It's never shot from the driver's side, it's always shot from the right side until it hits that tree. And I think there might be a frame or two before it hits a tree where you actually see the dent in the car before it hits a tree. So that's that story. And it was their mother's car. So, well.
I want to thank you guys. Any last things you guys want to mention before you guys head back? You guys are going to be heading back for signatures and photographs a little bit later on, or right after this?
yeah, I'm set up in the Living Dead store, by the way. So there's a lot of good stuff down there besides what I have, so please pay us a visit. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody.
And I thank every one of you for coming out to see the Night of the Living Dead.
We good? Yeah, any last words? Any famous last words? Well, let's hear it for them. The first Q&A of the day. Everyone did a great job. Excellent. Richard Ricci, John Russo, Joe Unitas, and Dick HECKARD. They're headed back to the Celebrity Building. John's headed back to the museum. So once again, thank you. Let's give them a better round of applause than that.